Okay, so Makee may not be as bad as everyone thinks she might be. Okay, hi, I'm Will Forge, and last video I talked about, episode 1, and now I'm talking about episode 2, and Makee's revealed at the very end of this episode, but I'm going to start off with her because this is just, it's too big of a deal, okay, this whole situation. So, Makee, she died in the first season at the end, so how is she still back alive? I have theories on that, but first I just want to say, to reestablish the genre to a war film genre, right? Which, like I was saying in the last video, was in the video before that when I was talking about season 1, it's very important because, Halo and the novels are, they are a war genre. They have this underlying emotion of dread with the expectation of triumph. That's supposed to be how Halo is. The first season didn't do that. So, and she in particular ruined that because she was constantly trying to sort of like get in good graces with the Covenant in a sort of political way. She was vying for political favor from Mercy, her like adopted father, and also trying to sort of like rise in the ranks in a way just to prove that maybe some humans aren't so bad, right? And that was a very like political maneuvering kind of climb the ladder kind of behavior, and it kind of like wrecked the whole warfare thing because for her, anytime she was in a scene, the politics were stronger than the warfare. That's what I was talking about in the last video, is that you need to, in a war genre, the war and to maintain that underlying dread has to be more powerful than the political conversations the characters are having, and they're vying for power, right? If you don't have that, then it will not feel like a war film. So the problem is with Makee was that was happening. Now they've reestablished her, and this is the beautiful part of that last scene. I know it's only a minute long, but I saw so much happen in that scene, and I want to bring you along for that ride really quick as I describe it, okay? Makee shows up, and they rip the Band-Aid off that. In the last video, I talked about how they ripped the Band-Aid off in the first episode, that Kwan Ha was still, was going to be in the show some more. She was only the very last scene. They just sort of ripped the Band-Aid off and let you see her as a character, right? They revealed that she's still alive, and then they ended the episode. This one, they did the same thing. Rip the Band-Aid off. Look, Makee is still alive. She is not dead. Somehow she has returned, like the Emperor, right? Somehow she has returned. Here's the thing about that, though. If she's alive now, that means that major surgery was done to her. But the Covenant don't do major surgery. They don't have, first off, any understanding of human biology in the first place to like any major extent. So what they would have had to have done was do something more mechanical to replace the organs that were missing, right? Where more of universal understanding of tissue damage and healing would be applicable. They don't have to understand what the organ that got damaged is supposed, like how to make it function better, right? They don't need that technology. They have the ability to replace entire limbs like the prophets do. They can make the prelates. They can sever their arms, replace it with robot arms, and then they're as strong as the elites, right? So the way she's alive again is probably she's about to become a prelate, which is going to make her more interesting as a character. Now, I want you to put aside your hate for her for just a second to just think about that. Imagine she never existed as dumb as she was in season 1, and she was always a human who hated her humanity so much, she was slowly replacing her body parts, maybe getting beat in battle and losing an arm, losing a leg, whatever. And every single time she comes back in the next fight, like an episode or 2 later, she's like Darth Vader. She's slowly becoming a machine, maybe even more so slowly than Darth Vader did, which was almost all at once. But the point is that if she slowly comes back a little more machine, a little more machine, she's also coming back a little less human. But if you think about it more poetically, the machines the Covenant build are reverse engineered technology from the Forerunner tech. So this is Mercy showing mercy on this human by allowing this human to become more holy, by being repaired with this holy technology that they've gathered from their ancient Forerunner gods. And so she is stripping away her humanity over time and becoming more and more of this sort of like servant of the Forerunners, this sort of like I don't know, like a D&D sort of paladin kind of character, and the prelates are kind of that. I call them prelate, by the way. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. It might be prelate or something like that. Whatever, I don't know. The point is, I've never heard it spoken. I've only seen it written. But the point is, if she comes back as a prelate, that would be kind of badass. She'd slowly become more and more that. I'll go into more of that later on in this video, because I kind of want to return to that topic and what that would mean in later seasons if she survives this one, and how she would survive it. Anyway, the point is, let's get back to that scene, that 1-minute scene, though. That's probably how she's alive, right? That's almost certainly how she's alive. I can't think of any other reason why she would still be alive. And then secondly, okay, what happens in the scene? What did she do in season 1 that was so awful, right? Every time she walked into a scene, she would like the hunters destroyed everyone on that ship, got everyone, killed them all, got to the very last guy, and she ordered it to stop, don't kill him, so she can interrogate him with her little glowy plasma fingernail. And it was like, there was literally a war on. A war was happening, and a political action told the war to stop. That she said, stop, and the war ended. This showed exactly how much more powerful politics were in season 1 to war, to the warfare element of Halo, right? So the war genre was wrecked every time that she came on scene and she did something really awful and bad for the show, right? Including the horrible scene that everyone knows what I'm talking about. So the point is that like, whenever she comes into this scene, though, she walks in, the new writer knew exactly what to do. They had her come in and do the exact same thing. There was an elite. He killed all of those soldiers. One wave, wave 2, and then he comes in there and he goes and grabs that final soldier and he lifts him up and he's holding him by the neck. And she walks in and does the exact same thing. She's about to interrogate this guy. She says, stop. And then the elite looks at her and she goes, please? And then he goes and snaps the guy's neck. He does not let the politics override the war. The war is on. There is no her saying please to stop him. Also, us who are already fans of the series know that what went through that mind, the mind of that elite, whenever he looked at her that way. It wasn't just like a bitch please and then he snapped the neck. It was like, it was serious. He was thinking it would be dishonorable to not give my enemy an honorable death at this moment. He chose to walk into the shadow and take me on and try and fight me. He sent all of his soldiers in 2 waves after me and watched all of them die and still tried to engage me in battle. If I give him any kind of peace now, it would be dishonorable to him and it would be stripping him of his honorable death in battle. No. And he snaps that guy's neck. We know that that's what went through the elite's mind. And that makes that scene even cooler because he didn't have to say anything to her for us fans to already get that, right? But like, she can't do any more of her politics stuff from the first season. We are told in that like 30-second, 1-minute scene where she's actually present in the scene, she shows up, oh, she's alive, rip the band-aid off, she is alive. We don't know how, but I pretty much probably told you how. She's probably a prelate, she's probably part machine. And then they're like, oh, hey, yeah, so the Covenant, they're not listening to her. The politics are no longer going to be overpower the war. The war is on. Don't worry, Makee will not be in control in this season. Then she goes and touches the relic. What that established was they've gotten relic number 1, right? And what it also established was what Makee's going to do in this season is serve the Covenant to do what she's only supposed to do, in the plot, because she's now part of the war effort rather than being this weird, like, heroic figure who is, like, bigger than the war, right? There was this thing in the first season where all the political thriller stuff was, like, making the characters be elevated above the, intensity of the war, and it was lame, and it was exactly what you do in, like, a thriller. If I was writing a thriller, I'd do that kind of thing, but that's the reason why non-Halo fans really liked the first season, and Halo fans were really upset about the first season, is that wasn't meshing. We were not used to that. That's not what the Halo series is about. It lost its core, its heart, right? The tone, the genre, the vibe, whatever you want to call it, it was completely off. I call it the genre because from a creative standpoint, whenever you're thinking about what you're going to write, you need to create that emotional baseline that's going to keep everyone, all of your audience on board and on the right track, so that whenever you show new emotions, you know where they are, where they're coming from. So whenever the emotion, you know how to show it in a way that does not disrupt their suspension of disbelief. Anyway, so Ackerson comes in and he's doing this whole thing where he's trying to push his politics over Master Chief, saying, I don't believe you. You are unreliable. You just had that Cortana thing in your head. I can't trust anything you say necessarily. And then Master Chief is like, do you really not trust me? And then he sort of has to backpedal and go, okay, fine, yeah, I guess I have to trust you. I have to. You're the Master Chief. And he does his propaganda stuff. And then the great thing of all of this is that it looks like political actions. But it doesn't detract from the war film aesthetic. It doesn't detract from the genre or deviate the genre, because basically what ends up happening is that we know the Master Chief is right. We saw the Covenant. We saw the Invisible Elites. We saw them disappear because they turned invisible and then ran off, and then the plasma came down and they evacuated off the planet before they got glassed, right? We saw this happen, so we know it happened. And just because Colonel Ackerson doesn't necessarily believe it, maybe does, maybe doesn't, but he's certainly not acting like he believes it right now. And it's like all of his political, like trying to do political maneuvers, we know is ultimately going to be pointless because the war is coming and it is worse than it was before. It's more severe. Okay, so basically though, in my last video, I talked about how if you do make a genre shift like they did in The Witcher, I was talking about that as my example, that you have to hang a lantern on your change. If you don't hang a lantern on it, which is it's a writing term to say we're bringing attention to a specific change or thing that is in the story that feels weird. So like, oh, this thing is absolutely absurd that this character would even do this. Have another character say, why did you even do that? Or just be like, are you kidding me right now? Like literally anything weird that might happen, you can write it off and the audience will get on board with it and accept it as long as you hang a lantern on it. And in this, like in The Witcher, they didn't do that. They like shifted the genre to political, and I was really annoyed by it. And a lot of people feel like it's shifted fundamentally, and then it's all about Yennefer now. And that's actually because the monsters don't matter anymore, and the politics do, and she's the political character, right? So the cool thing about all of this is that now that the genre has shifted, they need to, because they, in Halo, they shifted the genre to the war film, because originally they shifted it right out of the gate to this, political thriller, like action film, right? Or sci-fi. And what they did in that first season was a bad shift, in my opinion, off of what the games genre had already been established. The game is all about this underlying vibe of war film, right? The thing is, though, that in the first season, because they established that, now in the second season, they need to reestablish it and do an active, intentional shift back to a war film. And these new writers, they know how to do that. They hung a lantern on it, just like I was saying they need to do in The Witcher about their change. And I described exactly how I'd do it in that other video. The way they do it in Halo is they have what's her name, Admiral Polanski, I think it was what her name was, the Admiral from season 1. If that's the wrong name, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. So they have her like show up, and meet Master Chief in this elevator in secret, right? Where no one else knows that she's there, because she's now disgraced and been dishonorably discharged for working with Dr. Halsey in the first season. And so she tells him that she gave him this little device, if he presses this button, it'll send out a beacon and tell her where he is, and then that will allow her to come to his location and help evacuate him or get him out of there or whatever. Come with me and you tell me everything that you know, it'll help. And then he says, what's in it for me? And she says, I'll believe you, right? Because Colonel Ackerson is not believing him. And then on top of that, what ends up happening is that basically, this is where she hangs a lantern on it, is she says, no one inside that building, she's referring to FleetCom, no one inside of FleetCom understands that the war has changed. And it was perfect. And you may, if you watched it and you sort of felt this, like that they've established the new tone and then they sort of like hammered it down and it felt really good by like the second half of that first episode, like it felt like it was really going in the right direction by the second half. This is one of the points that made that happen for you, is because the moment she says that, your subconscious goes, the war has changed, the world has changed. So she establishes this change in the world. She hangs a lantern on the fact that the world has changed, and now all of the writing for all of the characters can be completely different, and it can be accepted. Like, characters can have completely different, like, personality shifts, and anyway, it's really good writing. It's really well done. So yeah, I mean, like, basically all of the characters can be completely rewritten, behave completely differently in season 2, now that the war is the focal point, right? Is that the world has changed because the war has changed, and now everyone can change as a result. I believe that's one of the reasons why they gave us 2 episodes right out of the gate, because they want to make sure this episode was seen right after the last one, so that they could hang this lantern on the change. In Halo, the warfare genre is more powerful than the politics in all the novels, all the video games, and now in season 2 it's back to that. And when they shift, that genre, it might feel jarring for people who are not Halo fans, who are expecting this genre to begin with. Anyone who was, a fan of Season 1 that didn't have anything to do with with the games or the books, they are going to feel a little bit like there is a genre shift now. And so now the new fans of Halo that really like the show of Season 1 will be able to see them hang this lantern on it and understand the shift. And then they went on to do that again later on. Like I said at the beginning of this video, whenever Makee tried to go and say, hey, stop. She's like, stop, please. And then he snaps the neck. That was another thing of them hanging a lantern on it, saying this elite is not going to listen to her like that anymore. And that was them saying, this is going to be different, okay? And that's the whole genre is now shifted because they are treating her differently too. You see what I mean? Everything is different. Now I want to get into Kwan Ha because I think I've said enough about that. Basically, Kwan Ha is promising in this season, and let me explain why. She comes out of the gate and she is now a prisoner. She's got that tag in her ear. She's been like human trafficked to Soren's base. She tried to get there probably and made a deal with an unsavory sort, and in the process ended up accidentally getting herself enslaved to this person. Now she's been human trafficked to Soren's what do you call it, space station asteroid field thing. She probably hasn't met with Soren yet. Soren's son has met with her, but she hasn't met with Soren yet. I'm not exactly sure why, because Soren doesn't seem to even know she's on the planet, or maybe he was like, are you talking to somebody? And he does know she's there. It was kind of unclear if he even knows she's on his in his place yet, you know what I mean? But anyway, the point is that they established her as being, now she's enslaved. Now this has humbled her. This has brought the hero from the first one, who was very much out of the war genre, being like some superhero character that didn't make any sense, where she was constantly defying logical decision making and surviving for some reason and accomplishing what she's doing. It felt really weird and out of place, right? So now she's been humbled and brought down to, this is a war and things are rough. She's been enslaved by these people, and this allowed the writers to now shift her personality. Now they can make it to where she can see the error in her ways and say things like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, like I was saying in the last video, that basically means she might ally with Master Chief. Okay, now, they established that with that slavery, and that was fantastic to me. Then, but in the process, right then, they had her throw someone over the railing, and then they had her go and hide, and then they had her throw someone onto a treadmill that made him launch out into space, and then they had her, kill a dude and stab him in the head with like the same chip that came out of her ear, and it was really like crazy how good she was at fighting. And I understand that her father was a warrior and he trained her, so she should have these skills, right? We didn't get to see any of these skills in the first season. Like, what? She didn't really do anything that was fighting that really felt like it was earned or made sense. This felt like she was like trying hard to survive these fights. So I want you to try and reframe your perspective on her and reanalyze these battles to sort of realize that these battles actually were written in a way where she was trying hard to survive. She was running away whenever she flipped that guy over the railing, and all she did was flip him over the railing. That dude survived. He just fell on his back, right? He maybe bumped his head or something like that. And she ran off down the railing and hid. Then she proceeded to throw that guy on the treadmill. The treadmill did the killing, right? So like all she had to do was get him on the treadmill and take advantage of the environment to win that little fight, which she was in the room before he was, so she got to get the lay of the land first. Then she fought the next guy and took him by surprise with that, that little thing. That was a little bit iffy because she got a pinpoint hit in the head. But let me explain why I'm actually a little bit looking forward to finding out if this might be the case. I have this feeling. In Season 1, they had her go and talk to those mystics, right? And it was kind of weird. And the mystics had her like hallucinate finding Master Chief and throwing the chain around his neck and doing all that weird nonsense and stuff like that. I don't know. The point is that it was very weird and unusual, and he kind of got to humble her at that point, threw her to the ground a few times, but it felt like odd. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. Here is my thinking that was happening in that scene, and it might have been intended even back then, but it wasn't communicated well, and I hope that even if it wasn't intended back then, that it has been retconned to intend this now. And let me explain. In Halo, anyone can be a chosen one. Everyone has the Gios. And, okay, so what the Gios is, if you do not know, is that the Forerunners, specifically the librarian, who is a librarian of genetic species, not a librarian of books, she genetically modified humanity to contain her personality and like her thoughts, memories, some stuff like that, and the Didact, her husband, her lover, who, was an epic warrior, one of the greatest warriors of the Forerunner. And so she embedded them, basically, into humanity's DNA 100,000 years ago. And it has been carried down through everyone. Anyone can be a reclaimer because every human has the Gios, okay? The thing about it is that means that when they change that to where now only Master Chief and Makee are the chosen ones, that's weird. But let me bring your attention to the chosen one thing is something that Truth and Mercy said. If Mercy has, has very limited information about what it is to be a chosen one, and all he sees is that some humans show up as a reclaimer in that universe, and not all humans, then what they might have been doing in that universe is that everyone contains the DNA to be a chosen one, but something about a state of mind puts you into a place where you can unlock the genetic memories and personality of the librarian and the Didact to where you can draw on it as a resource to make yourself more heroic if you've got the Didact's DNA, if you're tapping into him and the warrior, or more intelligent and ingenuitive if you're tapping into the librarian, which is always kind of the implication in the novels. I don't remember them ever explicitly saying this, but basically it implies that Master Chief has tapped into this Gios of the Didact, and several other characters have as well. I believe Sergeant Johnson was supposed to have as well, and Captain Keyes and Cole. I'm pretty sure like every one of the epic heroes in the Halo series is tapping into this heroic courage and this drive to fight that is the Didact's leftovers, like his sort of like resonance of his personality that she left behind in the Gios. And then Dr. Halsey and subsequently Cortana have tapped into the librarian and potentially other characters as well, maybe even Ackerson, who went on to make the Spartan 3 program. I believe that what may be happening with Makee is that vision quest she sort of went on in that little arena that she had where she fought Master Chief was her fighting another Didact, right? Another person who's tapped into the Didact that she knows. So she's hallucinating someone else that represents to her the Didact Gios. And she fights him, and she ends up coming to terms with him by the end of it. I forget exactly how that fight goes. I think she just realizes that her rage is not going to get her anywhere, and she, stops. I don't remember how it went anymore, and I don't want to rewatch the episode, so I'm not going to look it up. The point is that what I believe is happening is they implied that Makee is going to basically tap into this Gios and become another warrior, another Didact character, right? And that would be really cool. An insurrectionist Didact hero, right? That's tapped into the Gios. That could make her character interesting, and that will, if they establish that, now that she's done the vision quest at the end of season 1, that explains how she can flip people over the railing and go to battle against somebody and throw them out the airlock and then proceed to do that precision kill on the next guy. All of that was really epic combat that she wasn't capable of in the first season, but she probably had some training from her father, and being an insurrectionist, she just didn't have the ability to implement it in that way. She wasn't getting into the frame of mind of combat like a Spartan can, for example. And I think that Halsey, by the way, whenever in the original series, I've always thought this, whenever in the original series, or not always, as soon as they established the Gios, so in the Forerunner trilogy, when the Forerunner trilogy came out, I immediately clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, Halsey was looking for humans who have perfect genetics for the Spartan program. And before that, I always thought the perfect genetics were just to survive the augmentation process. And that is what she says is the perfect genetics. But she also has secrets, knowledge of the Forerunner, tech, and what they know about the Forerunners at that point. And so she may have some kind of information about, maybe she found the DNA without even knowing from the Forerunner, technology necessarily, but her ability, she's tapped into the librarian Gios.
Geass. And the librarian's the one who put the Geass in humanity. So if she had some kind of intuitive knowledge of what that every one of these Spartans had this specific DNA trait, and she needs to grab people with that one that have the didact Geass ready to activate. They're not just that they have it, everyone has it. It's that they're primed. Their DNA is so well aligned to it that their minds will naturally develop to draw from the didact's DNA, the didact Geass. That's always been my theory ever since, the Forerunner trilogy came out. And so basically at this point, I'm like, what if that's applying here to the show? Except for now, it's a much more limited thing. Like, you don't even show up as a reclaimer and therefore a chosen one unless you've activated the sort of DNA, right? So that's the only difference. It's not that all of mankind can't be a reclaimer. It's that all of mankind has to like meditate and come to a sort of state of self-realization to draw out the DNA of the Geass. And then that is how they become one of the reclaimers, right? And so any character, like, for example, in Halo Wars, I think Cutter and, all of the Spartans are didacts. And I think that, what's her name? The scientist lady. I think she is like Halsey. She's a librarian, right? The one who goes down and deals with the tech. Anyway, the point is, now let's get into Halsey, because I've been talking about Kwan Ha enough. I really do, like I said in the last video, I want to see her become the Kwan that's in the books that trains the Spartan Force. And if she is a didact, DNA activation, then that would be perfect. That would be perfect framing to lead her back in to train the Spartan Force and get them on that level, to awaken the didact within them, right? That'd be amazing. Anyway, okay, so what I want to talk about, though, about Halsey in this episode. So Soren is... There's a bounty for Halsey, right? We all know that. They established that with Soren, right? And then immediately after that, they showed that the UNSC has Halsey. Maybe the UNSC doesn't know they have Halsey. Maybe only Oni knows they have Halsey, and that's why Ackerson, who's part of Oni, knows that they have Halsey, but other people have a bounty on her head, right? Maybe that's what it is, some kind of political thing where that's behind the scenes. So by the way, this politics won't overwhelm the war, because it's not like the driving force of the story right now. But if that is the case, then that's just sort of like them doing their propaganda game, right? But I'm beginning to think it might not be the case, and let me explain why. I think Halsey is on the lam. I think Soren is going to end up finding her. And when that happens, I think they're going to reveal that the Halsey in that room is actually a fracture of Cortana, her subconscious, that is her memories and personality of Halsey. She is being held in that other room right around the corner from the hologram with Halsey, that hologram room, the holodeck with Halsey in it, prison there. Why is Halsey over there and she can't leave? It doesn't look like there's a door. There's just a hologram. So Cortana's right around the corner. Why is Cortana so close? I'm thinking that's a server room. I'm thinking they have Cortana over here to talk to Cortana, and they've sort of isolated a section of Cortana that is her Halsey personality and her Halsey memories and everything, and that is Cortana in that room. And if I'm right, it's going to be really cool whenever they reveal that. I hope I haven't spoiled anything by supposing it, but it's just a theory. I'm just guessing, and I hope you like that. But yeah, I don't know. It may be completely bogus. But whenever they revealed it was a holodeck room, I was like, oh my god, what if that's not Halsey? What if that's a hologram of Halsey? What if that's not Halsey? And then he walked around the room, there's Cortana. I was like, oh my god, what if that's Cortana? He's not talking to Halsey and interrogating Halsey and then also talking to Cortana. He's using the Halsey personality in Cortana to assess if the Cortana program is safe to use still. If it is going to betray them and take over the entire planet and, give Halsey control of the Spartan program or some crap like that. Take over every one of the Spartans' minds and suddenly she has control of everything. That's what he's doing. Ackerson is terrified of what Cortana could be capable of, and he's potentially isolating her personality. If that's not the case, I feel like that is the really cool theory I have, that may be where they're going. I had a lot of those in season 1, and they never panned out, because everything they did was completely off base for Halo. But the obvious one is Halsey, and they're using propaganda by putting out that bounty on her head to try and pretend like they don't have her captive, so the other Spartans don't try to rescue her. And that's an obvious one to try and do. That's a protection of themselves from the Spartans going crazy. I think that's perfectly reasonable too. Both of these directions would be great story and great plot. If it is a twist and that is Cortana, oh man, that's going to be really good writing. In my opinion, I think that'll be like, oh, that's good. Because that would mean Halsey's still out there and Soren can still link up with her, and maybe Kwan Ha will help him link up with her, and then the three of them will end up together. And oh my god, if she does know about like this sort of DNA memory thing by then like because Master Chief was awakening it in season 1, she might recognize it in Kwan Ha, and that would be kind of cool. Anyway, all that would be really badass. So, like, these are all my thoughts. Like, if this is where they're going with Kwan Ha, I think that'll be badass. She could train the Spartan program in the future, the Spartan 4 program in the future. And now that it's on a war genre path, all of her writing will feel different and will feel right. It'll feel good for Halo because she'll behave in a warfare, sort of tone. Hopefully, that continues all season because episode 1 and episode 2 are great on that front. And then I want Makee, I want to see her become a prelate, slowly erasing her humanity by replacing her body parts with machinery, because that fingernail in the first season was really stupid. But if she can create what do you call them, like plasma sword claws, like freaking not Wolverine, the other one that's an ex-mutant, one of the I forget her name, jeez. Anyway, the one that's like Wolverine, but the claws come out her fingertips, like her, and she could fight. I would just love to see at the end of this, whenever they're trying to invade Reach to get the other artifact. They have one now at the end of this episode. They need to get the other relic from from FleetCom, right? If she's going in to try and take that relic, and for her, it's capture the flag to capture that relic. And for Master Chief, it's VIP because he's trying to save some of the people in the building and evacuate people. And he wants to fight her and keep the relic, but part of him goes, no, we've got to save these people, and he has to help evacuate them, right? So because it's different objective modes in their multiplayer that they're playing, she can win and he can win, but his win feels like a loss because of what's happening in the war at the time, and with the attack on Reach, and then he's just evacuating people. It'll feel like a retreat or a loss, and that'll be awesome because it'll feel like Halo Reach, the game, a lose that was sort of a win, but not really. It was sort of a loss, but he doesn't have to lose to Makee being overpowering him. But if she can fight like a prelate, that means she could turn invisible like a prelate. That means she has plasma weaponry like a prelate. They use what do they use? Plasmas in their arm, or maybe use a staff. Right now I'm picturing them in my head, and I for some reason see both. I can't remember which weapons they use. I honestly can't remember right now. But if she's like a version of a prelate and she's got built-in plasma weapons or some kind of plasma sword, and she fights him and can turn invisible, and because of her augmentations can fight almost on his level, loses the fight with him, but because she distracts him long enough, like Atriox or the Arbiter manages to get the relic and extract it from Reach, then she still wins. Even if she loses the fight and then he wins and evacuates the people, she still won because she was the distraction while her team captured the flag. You know what I mean? That's a really cool dynamic, and it almost leans back into the gameplay of the multiplayer at that point by using that as a sort of framework for this battle. And oh my god, if that happens, it's gonna be really good writing. I was really looking forward to that in season 1. I actually described all this like a year ago in Twitter and in Reddit, and some people really thought that'd be an awesome idea. So much better than season 1, and I really hope it's the case. If it goes in a completely different direction, then this will be the same story as last time for me, that I predict good ideas and then terrible ideas come out. I hope a different direction it takes. It's still warfare and ends up still being amazing and just surprises me with really good writing in that direction too. But anyway, next episode. I haven't seen the next episode before I've recorded this one. Last time with episode 1, with video 1 about episode 1, I had seen episode 2 already, so now I don't know what's happening next. And oh man, I can't wait. I really honestly can't wait for the next episode. And I hope you come along with this journey for me as I delve into each episode and try to predict where they're going next and talk about how it is keeping in tune with the Halo genre and how the writing is better, and I'll explain why it feels so much better to you, because you may not realize why it feels better you'll just sort of get an idea that thing that happened I liked more than what happened last season, and I can tell you how it happened felt better. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that I can do that for the rest of the series. If I can keep this up, you'll enjoy this series of my reviews. Anyway, come along with the ride for me. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next episode whenever we both find out what happens in episode 3, and I'll review it with you. Thanks. Bye.